When did you discover love could actually ruin your life?
I never thought love could turn into poison. Not the kind that creeps slowly, but the kind that seeps into your veins so fast you can't tell if your heart is beating for someone else or just trying to survive. It started the year I turned 21. Old enough to know better, still young enough to believe that feeling something this intense must mean destiny. His name was Daniel. He had this smile that made you think he knew a secret about you that you didn't even know yourself. When we first met at a mutual friend's birthday, he held my gaze longer than was polite. "You look like trouble," he said with a grin, handing me a drink. I laughed it off, but something in the way he said it made me feel seen. Dangerous, but seen. We spent the whole night talking, even after the party dwindled. He told me about his job, about how he hated being stuck in the same town where his parents lived, about how everyone expected him to be this golden boy, and how he secretly wanted to burn everything down and start over somewhere no one knew his name. His words didn't scare me. They thrilled me. I'd grown up in a house where love was measured in chores done and grades achieved. To have someone look at me like I was a spark he could set the world on fire with, it was intoxicating. I should have recognized the signs. The way he pressed too hard on my hand when I said I had to go home. The way he laughed when I said no to another drink, then ordered it anyway and slid it across the table with that same grin. "Relax, you're safe with me." Safe. That word would later feel like a sick joke. By the second week, we were inseparable. He'd show up outside my classes unannounced, leaning against his car like he was in a music video. He'd take me for drives with the windows down, blasting old rock songs, shouting lyrics into the night sky. My friends warned me, gently at first, "He's kind of intense, isn't he?" I brushed it off. Intensity felt like passion. I told myself they just didn't understand. The first real argument happened a month in. I was late to meet him for dinner because my mom had asked me to stop by her house. When I finally arrived, his jaw was tight, his knuckles drumming against the table like a ticking bomb. "Where were you?" he asked. His tone was calm, but his eyes were something else. "I told you, my mom." "You could have texted." "I did." "Not enough." I remember sitting there, frozen, because who says not enough? He reached across the table, took my hand, and squeezed hard enough to make me wince. Then he smiled that familiar smile. "I just worry, that's all. You're everything to me." That line was enough to dissolve my unease. Being everything to someone sounded like love. I didn't realize it also meant ownership. 2 months later, he knew all my passwords. He said it was just in case of emergencies. He scrolled through my messages while I was in the shower. If I got a notification, he read it before I could. At first, I laughed when he teased me about a male coworker sending me memes. But the laughter turned to silence when he deleted the guy's number from my phone. "You don't need distractions," he said. The shift was so gradual I barely noticed. My world became smaller, carved down until it was just him. Friends stopped inviting me places because I always said no. My mom mentioned I seemed distant, but I insisted everything was fine. Love was supposed to make sacrifices, wasn't it? That's what I kept telling myself. One night after we had been together almost half a year, I came home late from work. I found him sitting in my living room, lights off, just waiting. I didn't even know how he got in. The look on his face made my stomach twist. "You didn't answer my calls," he said flatly. "I was working. My phone was in my bag. Do you think I'm stupid?" That was the first time he raised his voice at me. The first time I realized how small the apartment suddenly felt. He didn't hit me that night, but he smashed a glass against the wall, shards flying across the carpet. I stood there shaking while he hugged me immediately after, whispering, "I'm sorry, baby. I just love you so much. You drive me crazy." And I believed him, because love was supposed to be messy, wasn't it? The truth was, I was already tangled too deep. Every time I thought about leaving, I remembered the way he'd kiss my forehead in the morning, the way he held me when I cried about work stress, the way he promised me we'd travel the world one day. He could be cruel, yes, but he could also be tender. And I was addicted to the pendulum swing between the two. I didn't know then that the worst was still coming, because love wasn't just going to break my heart, it was going to ruin my life. The night it truly shifted started with laughter. That's the part that still unsettles me. How normal everything felt. How safe I thought I was right before the floor gave out beneath me.
That was the night I decided I had to leave.
But deciding and doing are two very different things. Leaving Daniel was supposed to be simple. People make it sound so easy. Pack your things, walk out the door, don't look back. But when you've been living inside someone else's cage, you forget how to open doors. I remember sitting on the edge of his bed that night, my palms sweaty. The image of those messages burned into my brain. My body buzzed with adrenaline, but my legs wouldn't move. Every scenario played out in my head. If he caught me sneaking out, if he checked my phone, if he saw the fear in my eyes, he didn't need to raise a hand. I'd already learned to police myself for him. The next morning, I went to work like nothing had happened, but something inside me shifted. I started planning quietly. A bag stashed at my mom's house, cash hidden in an old jacket pocket, passwords changed one by one. I even made excuses to stay late at work, just to breathe without his shadow. But Daniel wasn't stupid. He could smell distance like blood in the water. One evening, when I came home later than usual, he was waiting by the door. His eyes scanned me up and down, his voice low. "You're pulling away." My heart thudded. "I'm just tired, Daniel." "No, you're different." He stepped closer, pressing his forehead against mine. "Don't forget, I know you better than anyone. I know when you're hiding something." I forced a smile, kissed him lightly, and whispered, "You're imagining things." He kissed me back, slow and deep, but I could feel his suspicion crawling over my skin like ants. That week, he checked my phone more often. He asked for my work schedule in detail, even called my boss once to make sure she wasn't overworking me. He framed it as concern, but I saw the truth. He was circling me like a predator, waiting for the first sign of escape. Then came the night that nearly broke me. I was at my mom's house dropping off some laundry I said I didn't have time to do at my apartment. She gave me this look, half concern, half exhaustion. "You've been quiet lately," she said, folding one of my shirts. "I'm fine, Mom." She sighed. "You're not. I know you're not, but you won't tell me what's wrong." And in that moment, I wanted so badly to spill everything, to tell her about the bruises, the threats, the cheating, but then my phone buzzed on the counter. "Daniel, where are you?" My stomach flipped. He hadn't even waited for me to reply before the next message came. "Daniel, send me a picture. Prove it." I froze. My mom's voice blurred in the background. My hands shook as I angled the camera toward her kitchen table, snapped a photo, and sent it. Within seconds, the typing bubble appeared. "Daniel, don't stay too long. I need you here." When I looked up, my mom was staring at me. She'd seen the way my face strained, the way my body curled inward. "Who is it?" she asked. "No one," I lied. But she didn't push. She just reached out and squeezed my hand, like she was telling me she'd be there when I was ready. That night, I went back to Daniel's, a pit in my stomach the whole drive. He greeted me with a kiss, acting normal, but his phone was in his hand. I caught a glimpse of his screen, the same thread I'd just sent him, my picture, enlarged, proof of my obedience. He smiled like he'd won, and maybe he had in that moment, but something inside me hardened. The next day, I went to work early and pulled my closest coworker aside, a woman named Jenna who had always been kind but distant. My voice cracked as I whispered, "Can I trust you with something?" Her eyes softened. "Of course." I told her. Not everything, but enough. The surveillance, the control, the bruises that didn't fade fast enough. She didn't flinch. She didn't doubt me. She just said, "You need a plan, and I'll help you." Hearing someone else say it out loud that I needed a plan made it real. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope can be dangerous, because Daniel was watching me closer than ever, and he was about to find out I was slipping away. Jenna became my lifeline. Every morning, she'd slip me a sticky note with something simple: a shelter's phone number, a lawyer's name, the address of a women's support group across town. I kept them tucked into my shoe, pressed flat against the sole, where Daniel would never look. The plan was to wait for a weekend he was working overtime, pack what I could carry, disappear to a shelter, cut off all contact. Clean. Simple. But nothing with Daniel was ever simple. One Friday night, he surprised me with a weekend getaway. Just the two of us. No work, no friends, no distractions. His tone wasn't romantic. It was possessive, a command disguised as a gift. My stomach twisted. I couldn't say no. Saying no meant questions, and questions meant danger. We drove 2 hours to a cabin in the woods he'd rented. isolated. No neighbors, no cell service, the kind of place you scream in and no one hears. The first night was fine, almost normal. He made a fire, we drank wine, and for a few hours it almost felt like the version of him I fell for. But even then, I noticed how often his eyes flicked toward my phone, how his hand lingered on my wrist a beat too long when I got up to use the bathroom. By the second night, the mask slipped. I'd gone to bed early, exhausted from pretending. Sometime after midnight, I woke to the sound of him rifling through my bag. I froze, keeping my breathing steady. Through the shadows, I saw him pull out the folded sticky notes Jenna had given me. He turned slowly, holding them in the firelight, his face unreadable. Then he laughed, low, cold. "You think you're clever?" My heart dropped into my stomach. I sat up, scrambling for words. "Daniel, I... You were going to leave me?" His voice cracked on the last word, a mix of rage and something that sounded almost like heartbreak. "Daniel, it's not what you think. Don't lie to me." He crossed the room in 2 strides, grabbing my arm so hard I gasped. His eyes were wild, tears threatening but never falling. "After everything I've done for you, after everything I've given you, you just walk away?" I tried to pull back. "You don't own me." The words were out before I could stop them. His grip tightened, his face twisted, and then he shoved me against the wall. My head hit the wood with a dull thud. Stars exploded in my vision. "You're mine," he hissed. "Do you hear me? Mine." For the first time, I felt something stronger than fear. Rage. I shoved him back with all my strength, surprising us both. He stumbled, knocking the lamp off the nightstand. The bulb shattered, plunging the cabin into flickering firelight and darkness. I ran, barefoot into the night, the cold biting my skin. Branches clawed at my arms as I sprinted into the woods, heart hammering, lungs burning. Behind me, his voice tore through the silence. "Come back! You'll never make it without me!" I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Somehow I found the road, headlights in the distance. I stumbled into the lane, waving my arms, half hoping it wasn't him chasing me in his car. The vehicle screeched to a halt. A man rolled down his window, wide-eyed. "Jesus, are you okay?" I collapsed against his door, sobbing. "Please, just drive." He didn't ask questions. He just drove. That night, I ended up at Jenna's house, trembling on her couch, while she pressed ice against the bump on my head. She held my hand, steady and calm, while I called the police. But calling the police was only the beginning, because Daniel wasn't going to let me go quietly. The officer who took my statement that night was polite, but detached. Clipboard balanced on his knee, pen scratching as I stumbled through what had happened. When I mentioned the notes Daniel had found, the officer raised his eyebrows. "So you were planning to leave him?" The way he said it wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "Yes," I whispered. "Because he hits me. He checks my phone. My voice cracked. He sighed, scribbling something. "Do you have proof of the abuse?" Proof. As if bruises blooming across my ribs weren't enough. As if the bump on my skull could be explained away by clumsiness. "No photos," he pressed. I shook my head. Daniel always made sure of that. The officer glanced at Jenna, then back at me. "We'll file a report, but without evidence, it's going to be hard. Men like him, they don't usually leave marks in places people can see. Men like him." He said it like there were hundreds of Daniels out there, thousands, and still nothing could be done. They issued me a temporary protective order, a piece of paper I was supposed to believe could stop him. Jenna insisted I stay at her place until we figured out something more permanent. But Daniel was fast. By Monday, he was outside my work, just sitting in his car, engine running, sunglasses hiding his eyes. My boss asked if I knew the guy who'd been in the parking lot for hours. I forced a smile. "Yeah, it's fine." Inside, my stomach twisted like barbed wire. That night, my phone lit up with his messages. "We need to talk. I can forgive you. You don't understand what we have." Then darker. "You'll regret this." I blocked his number. He made new ones. Burner apps, anonymous emails, even fake social media accounts pretending to be strangers. Always the same undertone. "I'm watching." The police told me to keep records, screenshots, logs. But each time I showed them, it was the same answer. Harassment cases take time. Just stay away from him. Stay away? How do you stay away from someone who knows every place you go, every friend you have, every routine you've ever built? 2 weeks later, I came home from work to find my apartment door ajar. My stomach dropped. Inside, nothing looked stolen, nothing out of place, except for one thing. On my pillow sat a single red rose, fresh, perfect, and next to it, a folded note. You can't hide from love. I screamed. Jenna called the cops. They came, glanced around, filed another report, told me to change my locks, but I knew. He still had a key. He'd always have a way in. I stayed at Jenna's full time after that. She gave up her bed, insisting I take it while she slept on the couch. She never complained, not once. She became the shield between me and the storm. But storms find cracks. One evening as we were cooking dinner, Jenna's phone buzzed. She froze, her eyes darting to me, before she handed it over. It was a message from an unknown number. A picture of us, standing in her kitchen window laughing, taken from outside. My knees nearly gave out. He was there, right outside, watching. Jenna called the police again, voice trembling with anger this time. But by the time they arrived, he was gone, like smoke, like he'd never been there at all. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house felt like him creeping closer. Every shadow in the hallway looked like his silhouette. And then, just before dawn, I heard it. A knock at the door. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Jenna sat up on the couch, wide-eyed. We didn't move. We didn't breathe. The knock came again, louder this time. And then his voice. Smooth, almost playful. Baby, open up. We need to talk. Jenna's hand gripped my wrist so tightly it hurt. We sat there, frozen, staring at the front door like it was a loaded gun. Daniel's voice drifted through the wood, low and coaxing. Come on, sweetheart. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Every cell in my body screamed to stay silent, to disappear. But then his tone shifted, sharp, angry. You know I'm in there. I saw the lights. You can't hide from me. The knocking turned into pounding. The door rattled in its frame. Jenna mouthed, call the cops. My fingers fumbled across my phone, dialing with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The dispatcher kept me on the line, whispering for us to stay put. Help was on the way. But minutes stretched like hours. Daniel's voice rose with rage. You're ruining everything. Do you get that? We were supposed to be forever.
He kicked the door once, twice, the wood groaning under the impact. My breath caught. One more and it might give. Jenna grabbed the heavy lamp from the side table, her jaw set, ready to swing if he broke through. And then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed across the curtains. Daniel's pounding stopped instantly. I heard his footsteps retreat, the screech of tires tearing away into the night. When the officers came in, we were still huddled on the couch, Jenna clutching the lamp like a weapon. I could barely speak, words tumbling out in broken pieces. They searched the yard, the street, but of course, he was gone. Do you want to press charges? One of them asked, pen poised. Yes, I whispered, surprising myself with how steady it sounded. But Daniel knew the system better than I did. By the time the paperwork was filed, he had already spun his own story. Harassment? No, he said. Concern. A devoted boyfriend worried about his unstable girlfriend being manipulated by a friend with ulterior motives. It wasn't just his lies. It was the charm. The way he could look anyone in the eye and sell them a story so smooth it felt undeniable. He'd done it to me. Now he was doing it to everyone else. Still, the police put him on notice. He wasn't supposed to contact me. No calls, no visits, no notes left on pillows. But that didn't mean he stopped. He just got smarter. Blocked numbers at 3 a.m, anonymous letters slipped under Jenna's door. One night I opened her fridge to find a Polaroid taped inside. Me, walking home from work, unaware of the camera. Jenna wanted me to move to a shelter out of town. I wanted that too, in theory. But something in me burned hotter than fear now. Rage. I was done being hunted, done being silent. So I started writing everything down. Every text, every call, every shadow I thought might be him. I bought a cheap recorder and kept it in my bag, capturing his voice when he shouted through my door or called from hidden numbers. Piece by piece, I built my case. But the more evidence I gathered, the more dangerous he became. One night, Jenna's car tires were slashed. Another, my mom's window was shattered with a rock wrapped in paper that read, "You made me do this." That broke me, not because of the glass, but because he was expanding the battlefield. It wasn't just me anymore. My mom, Jenna, anyone who tried to protect me became collateral. The final straw came 2 weeks later. I was walking to my car after work when I felt it, that crawling sensation of being watched. I turned, and there he was, standing at the edge of the lot, hands in his pockets, smiling. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. And in that moment, I realized he wanted me to break. Not just leave, not just fear, break. I got in my car, locked the doors, and drove straight to the police station. I slammed the pile of evidence I'd collected onto the desk: photos, recordings, logs, everything. My hands shook, but my voice was clear. If you don't stop him, he's going to kill me. The officer stared at the stack, at me, then back at the stack. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that looked like belief, and that belief might have been the only thing that saved me. The detective who took over my case was different. Older, tired eyes, but sharp, like he'd seen too many stories like mine and didn't want to add another obituary to the pile. His name was Detective Harris, and when he flipped through my stack of evidence, he didn't brush it aside. He leaned in. He listened. "You've done more work than half my rookies," he said low. "This is enough to file for a stronger order, maybe even stalking charges." For the first time in months, hope sparked. But hope was dangerous. Harris warned me, "When we move forward, he'll know. Men like him don't go quietly. You need to be ready." I thought I was. I wasn't. The restraining order was upgraded to a permanent one. They brought Daniel in for questioning. I wasn't allowed in the room, but I heard later how he played it. Calm, charming, said he loved me, said I was troubled, said I was being manipulated by Jenna. He even cried. The officers told me he asked if he could just pray for me before he left. And then, the next night, Jenna's house was broken into. Nothing stolen, nothing destroyed, just one thing left behind: my old hoodie, folded nicely on her kitchen table. I can still see it in my mind. Faded blue, fraying cuffs, the one I thought I'd lost at his apartment months ago. Jenna's hands shook when she called Harris. He came himself this time, his face carved from stone.
"This isn't about love anymore," he muttered. "This is about control." He's escalating. The police started driving by Jenna's street more often, parking out front at odd hours, but Daniel was always one step ahead. He knew when to vanish, when to appear, how to slip through cracks in the system. And then he went after my mom. She called me one evening, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, I think he was here." "What do you mean?" My chest went tight. There was a note on the porch. It just said, "Take her back before someone gets hurt." I felt the blood drain from my face. She wanted to come to Jenna's. I begged her not to. "If you're here, you'll just be another target." My voice broke as I said it. Protecting her meant keeping her away from me. The guilt was suffocating. That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside was his footsteps. Every creak of the floorboards was his hand on the door. And then, just before dawn, my phone lit up. An unknown number. I shouldn't have answered, but my thumb betrayed me. His voice came through the line, soft and steady. "You can run, baby. You can hide behind your little friends, your cops, your rules. But you know as well as I do, you belong to me. And when you finally stop fighting, when you finally come home, you'll see I'm the only one who can love you the way you deserve." Click. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding like it might rip through my chest. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't going to stop until one of us was gone. Either I disappeared completely, or Daniel did. The next time he came for me, I promised myself it wouldn't end with me running. But promises like that come with consequences. The next confrontation came faster than I expected. It was a Thursday night, quiet, almost peaceful. Jenna had gone to bed early, and I was curled on the couch with the TV humming in the background. For the first time in weeks, my guard slipped. I let myself believe maybe the police presence had scared him off. Maybe he was finally giving up. Then I heard the window. A faint scrape. The unmistakable sound of glass shifting in its frame. My blood turned to ice. I crept toward the kitchen,
heart hammering so loud I swore he could hear it. And there he was, half his body already inside, one leg hooked over the sill. His eyes locked on mine, and he smiled like we were lovers meeting in secret. Baby, you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm here. Every instinct screamed to run, but something inside me snapped instead. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe rage, maybe the months of being hunted like prey. No, I said, voice shaking but loud. You're not here because you love me. You're here because you want to own me. His smile faltered, just for a second. Then he swung his other leg over, landing silently on the kitchen tile. You don't get it, he said, stepping closer. Without me, you're nothing. I backed away, fingers fumbling for the recorder in my pocket. I pressed the button. His voice filled the air, raw and venomous. You think anyone else will put up with you? You think that friend of yours actually cares? She's using you. They all are. I'm the only one who knows who you really are. Step by step, he closed the distance. My back hit the wall. His hand reached out, fingers brushing my cheek. Let's just go home. And then light. Red and blue strobes flooded through the curtains. A sharp voice boomed from outside. Police, step away from her. Daniel froze, his face twisted from devotion to fury in a heartbeat. You called them, he hissed. Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Officers swarmed in, guns drawn. One grabbed me, pulling me behind him, while two others tackled Daniel to the ground. He thrashed, shouting, spitting curses. I love you. She's mine. You can't take her from me. His voice cracked as they dragged him out, cuffed and screaming. I stood trembling in the hallway, barely able to process that it was finally happening, that the nightmare was being pulled out of my life, kicking and clawing. But even as they shoved him into the back of the squad car, his eyes found mine through the window, wild, unblinking. And he mouthed it, clear as day. This isn't over. Detective Harris kept his word. The evidence I'd gathered, the recording from that night, Jenna's testimony, it all piled up into something even Daniel couldn't talk his way out of. Stalking, breaking and entering, violation of a protective order. Enough to keep him locked up for a while. The day of the hearing, I sat in the back of the courtroom. My palms were sweaty, my body buzzing with a mixture of fear and defiance. Daniel walked in wearing an orange jumpsuit, shackled at the wrists. For the first time, he looked smaller, diminished. But when his eyes met mine, that same smile flickered, the smile that had hooked me once upon a time. I didn't look away. The judge denied his bail, ordered him held until trial. The gavel struck, and just like that, a piece of his control shattered. But walking out of that courthouse, I knew it wasn't the end. Because love that turns into poison doesn't just vanish when the door slams shut. It lingers, in scars, in shadows, in the quiet moments when you wonder if he was right, if no one else will ever love you the same way. And deep down, I understood. This wasn't just Daniel's story anymore. It was mine. The weeks after his arrest were the strangest of my life. You'd think freedom would feel like breathing fresh air after being buried alive. And in some ways, it did. I could sleep through the night without jolting awake at phantom knocks. I could walk to my car without scanning every shadow. I could check my phone without bracing for his name. But freedom carried its own weight. Every creak of Jenna's house still made me jump. Every stranger's glance lingered too long. Every quiet night felt like a trick, a pause before the next storm. Trauma has a way of convincing you that peace is just camouflage. I started therapy. The first session, I sat across from a woman with kind eyes and said, I don't even know who I am without him. My voice cracked on the last word, and I hated myself for it. Hated that even after everything, his shadow was still wrapped around my throat. The therapist didn't flinch. She said, That's normal, she said softly. He didn't just hurt you physically. He rewired the way you see yourself. Now, we undo that, piece by piece. It sounded impossible, but I kept going back. Meanwhile, the trial loomed. Harris called me often, walking me through what to expect. He'll try to charm the jury, he warned. He'll twist the story, make you doubt yourself. Don't let him. I nodded, but inside the thought of facing Daniel again made me sick.
When the day came, the courthouse felt like a tomb. Cold marble, harsh fluorescent lights, air heavy with whispers. I sat outside the courtroom, Jenna on one side, my mom on the other. My mom hadn't left my side since that night he left the note on her porch. She blamed herself for not seeing the signs sooner. I told her the blame wasn't hers to carry, but the guilt was carved too deep. When they brought Daniel in, shackled again, my heart lurched despite everything. He still had that presence, that pull. Even in an orange jumpsuit, he carried himself like the room belonged to him. His eyes found me instantly. He didn't smile this time. He just stared. The prosecution laid out the evidence. The notes, the calls, the break-in, the recording from that night he whispered that I was nothing without him. Piece by piece, they painted the truth. My truth. Then it was my turn. I stood at the witness stand, palms slick, throat dry. His lawyer tried to rattle me, asking why I stayed so long, why I didn't leave sooner, why I never took pictures of the bruises. Each question felt like a blade, but I forced myself to answer. I said, because I loved him. Because he made me believe I was worthless without him. Because when someone tells you they're the only one who'll ever love you enough times, you start to believe it. The courtroom was silent. For once, Daniel didn't smirk. He just looked at me, his face unreadable. Afterwards, I stepped down, knees weak, but something inside me felt lighter. Like speaking it out loud stole some of his power back. When the jury went out to deliberate, time dragged like molasses. Hours ticked by. Jenna squeezed my hand until it hurt. My mom prayed under her breath. I just stared at the flow, bracing for the worst. Then the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. The breath I'd been holding for a year finally left my body. Tears blurred my vision, but I didn't care. He was going away. Not forever, but long enough. Long enough for me to build a life he couldn't touch. As they let him out, shackles clinking, he turned one last time. His mouth moved. Silent words. This isn't the end. A chill ran down my spine. Because even with the bars, the chains, the guilty verdict, part of me knew he was right. The system could cage him, but only I could decide if he still owned me. And that decision would take everything I had left. After the trial, people expected me to celebrate. Jenna wanted to take me out for dinner. My mom suggested a family gathering. Even Detective Harris shook my hand with a rare smile, saying, "You did good. You're safe now." Safe. That word again. The same word Daniel used when he first pulled me into his world. But I didn't feel safe. Freedom wasn't fireworks and champagne. It was silence. A silence so deep it echoed. No constant buzzing of messages, no shadow at the edge of every street, no voice breaking through my phone at 3 a.m. You'd think that would be relief. Instead, it was emptiness, like cutting off a limb and realizing you'd grown used to the pain. The first night back at my apartment, I couldn't close my eyes. I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. My chest tightened until I had to get up and check every door, every window. Twice. The hoodie he'd left on Jenna's table, I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I folded it, shoved it into the back of my closet. Some part of me wanted to burn it. Another part couldn't let go. Therapy became my anchor. My therapist explained trauma bonding, how abusers break you down and then feed you scraps of kindness until you confuse control with love. I listened, I nodded, but late at night, when memories flooded back, I still heard his voice whispering, "You're mine." Jenna never said it out loud, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. She'd given up her space, her peace, her safety for me. I owed her more than I could repay. One morning, she found me packing a bag. "You're not leaving, are you?" she asked. "I have to," I whispered. "I can't keep dragging you into this." She set the bag down firmly. "You're not dragging me. I chose this. I'm not letting him win by making you feel like a burden." Her voice cracked, but her grip on my shoulder didn't waver. For the first time, I saw how deeply she believed in me, maybe more than I believed in myself. Still, the cracks showed. At work, I jumped when someone said my name too loudly. At the grocery store, I froze when I saw a man with Daniel's build in the aisle. Even walking down the street felt like balancing on glass. And then came the letter.
no return address, just my name, written in his handwriting. Inside was a single sentence: "Love doesn't end in a courtroom." My hands shook so badly I dropped it. Called Harris immediately. He came, bagged it for evidence, promised me Daniel couldn't have sent it from prison. Mail was monitored. But someone had sent it, which meant he had people on the outside, which meant his reach was longer than I'd had thought. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, lights off, staring at the street, waiting. Weeks blurred into months. Daniel stayed locked up, his appeals denied. Slowly, painfully, the tension in my body began to ease. Not gone, never gone, but softer, like learning to breathe again after being underwater too long. I enrolled in night classes, started journaling, filling page after page with everything I'd never said out loud. Anger, fear, the tiny sparks of hope I was almost ashamed to feel. One entry still haunts me. When did love become a weapon? And why do I still miss the hand that held the blade? By the 1-year mark, I stood at a survivors group meeting, telling my story out loud for the first time. My voice shook, but I kept talking. Faces around the circle nodded, tears in their eyes, each of them carrying their own versions of Daniel. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. But as I left that night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. One day soon. The chill that ran through me was ice cold, bone deep. Because whether it was him or someone else, the message was clear. Daniel's story wasn't over, and neither was mine. When I got that text, one day soon, I nearly dropped the phone. My stomach twisted into knots, my throat tightened until I could barely breathe. For a long time, I just stood there in the parking lot of that church basement, staring at the glowing words on the screen. The irony was not lost on me. I had just told a room full of strangers that I was free, that I was healing. And then, in one blink, I was right back in the cage. I showed the message to Detective Harris the next morning. He studied it quietly, jaw tight.
It could be him, he said, but it could also be someone else, trying to rattle you. Sometimes these guys find sympathizers, people who believe their sob stories. Did he charm anyone in court? Old friends? Family? I thought back. Daniel's mother had cried through the entire trial, whispering prayers under her breath, glaring at me like I'd dragged her saint of a son into hell. His cousin had shouted outside the courthouse once, calling me a liar. He had followers. I knew that now. But it sounds like him, I whispered. Harris didn't argue. He just nodded, made a note, and told me to change my number again. I did, but deep down I knew changing a number was like putting tape over a cracked dam. For a while, nothing happened. I started believing maybe it was just a last gasp, a pathetic attempt to keep me afraid. I focused on school, on therapy, on small things that reminded me I was alive. Coffee in the morning sun, the feeling of my mom's hug when I visited her, Jenna's sarcastic jokes that still made me laugh. But then, the letters began. They showed up at random. No return address, always typed, never handwritten. Each one short, almost poetic. Love survives distance. Cages can't hold forever. We'll finish what we started. At first, I ripped them up, flushed them down the toilet. But after the third, I started saving them in a folder for Harris. He looked at me with quiet concern every time I handed him another envelope. You're doing the right thing, he'd say. But it didn't feel right. It felt like a countdown. Then, one night, I caught my reflection in the mirror and almost didn't recognize myself. Dark circles under my eyes, shoulders permanently hunched like I was waiting for a blow. And the worst part? I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Bone deep tired. That's when I realized he'd done more than try to ruin my life. He'd succeeded. Even from behind bars, he was still inside my head, poisoning every corner. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to keep surviving him. I was going to kill the hold he had over me. Not literally kill him, though God knows I thought about it. No, I meant I had to cut the last thread. Stop reacting.
Stop letting every letter, every whisper, every shadow own me. My therapist called it reclaiming agency. I called it the only way forward. I started small. I stopped saving the letters. When the next one came, I tore it up and threw it in the trash without reading it fully. My hands shook the whole time, but I did it. And the sky didn't fall. I changed my locks again, not because I thought he'd get out, but because I wanted to feel the sound of a deadbolt sliding into place on my terms. I walked to class at night with my head up, not darting side to side. I forced myself to breathe steady, even when my pulse screamed at me to run. And slowly, something shifted. The nightmares came less often. The panic attacks dulled. And one morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about him the entire day before. Just one day, carved out of the wreckage, where he didn't own me. It was small, but it was everything. Months passed. His trial faded from the headlines. The letters stopped. The world moved on. And then, one bright spring afternoon, I got a call from Harris. His voice was steady, but heavy. Daniel's been released early. Overcrowding. The room spun. My knees buckled. Every inch of progress I'd clawed back threatened to collapse. Harris hesitated, then added, I wanted you to hear it from me. And I want you to remember, you're not who you were when this started. You're stronger now. You're ready. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. But all I could hear, echoing in my head, was Daniel's voice from that night in the cabin. You're mine. And if he came back for me, I knew this time it wouldn't end with me running. It would end one way or another. The day Daniel walked free, the air itself felt heavier. I didn't see him, didn't hear from him, but just knowing he was out there, breathing the same air, walking the same streets, it was enough to make my skin crawl. I doubled my therapy sessions. Jenna insisted I stay at her place again, at least until we knew what his next move would be. But every night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of a knock, a scrape, a whisper through the door. For weeks, nothing happened. Silence. Too much silence. And then, one evening after class, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. White paper, neat type. I told you this wasn't over. My hands shook so hard I dropped it. I wanted to scream, cry, rip it to shreds. Instead, I stuffed it in a plastic bag and drove straight to Detective Harris. He cursed under his breath when he read it. He's testing boundaries, wants to see how fast you'll react. Don't give him the satisfaction. But how do you not react when every nerve in your body is on fire? That night, I slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. Days later, Jenna's car alarm blared at 2 a.m. We ran outside, adrenaline flooding our veins. No one was there. But on her windshield was another note. You're not safe with her. That was the breaking point for Jenna. She slammed her fists against the hood, tears streaming down her face. I can't keep doing this. I can't. He's going to kill you, and maybe me too. Her words sliced me open. She wasn't wrong. Daniel wasn't just destroying me anymore. He was destroying everyone around me. I called my mom the next day, told her everything. The letters, the stalking, the fear that never left. She cried quietly, then said, Come home. Let me take care of you. But I couldn't. I couldn't drag her into the crosshairs too. Instead, I made a choice. If Daniel wanted me broken, if he wanted me terrified, I was going to give him the opposite. I started living louder. I posted pictures online again, smiling, out with friends, holding coffee cups in the sun. I joined a survivors advocacy group and spoke at events, telling my story into microphones while strangers wiped tears from their eyes. Every word I spoke, every smile I forced into existence felt like defiance. And then, it happened. At one of the events, I saw him. He was in the back of the room, half hidden under a baseball cap, watching me. My chest tightened, but I didn't stop speaking. My voice trembled, but I kept going. I told the crowd about manipulation, about trauma bonds, about the way love can twist into a cage. And the whole time, I felt his eyes burning into me. When it ended, I pretended not to see him slip out the side door. Later that night, my phone buzzed. You're braver than I thought, but you'll never be free. Something shifted in me then. For months, years even, I'd been reacting to him, running, hiding, defending. But now I realized I could fight. Not with knives, not with fists, but with truth, with exposure, with a voice louder than his shadow. So I called Harris. I said, let him watch me, let him follow me, because this time I'm going to catch him in the act. And for the first time, Harris didn't sound like a cop delivering lines. He sounded like a soldier ready for war. Then we end this, he said. But ending it meant walking straight into the fire. And I wasn't sure if I'd come out whole. The plan was risky. Harris warned me more than once. If we do this, you're bait. He'll come for you because he won't be able to resist. And you need to be ready for what that feels like. Ready? I hadn't felt ready for anything since the day I met Daniel. But I was tired of living on pause, tired of waiting for the next letter, the next shadow, the next knock. So I agreed. We set it up carefully. My advocacy group was hosting a larger event at the community center, a panel, with media invited. Harris arranged for undercover officers to be there, cameras hidden, microphones wired near the exits. I'd speak, just like before, but this time they'd be watching the watchers. The night of the event, my nerves were on fire. My palms were slick, my voice rehearsed but trembling. Jenna hugged me tight before I walked on stage. "You're stronger than him," she whispered. I wanted to believe it. The lights were bright, the audience a blur of faces. I started talking. My stories spilled out, smoother this time, stronger. I spoke about how love can twist into control, how silence protects abusers, how surviving isn't the same as living. Every word felt like ripping a thorn from my chest. And then I saw him. Back of the room, same baseball cap, same stillness. His eyes never left me. My throat closed, but I kept going, kept talking, kept standing. Because this time, I wasn't alone. When the panel ended, people lined up to shake my hand, hug me, thank me. I smiled, nodded, felt like I was moving through water. Because all I could see was that cap, that face, hovering near the exit. Then he moved, slipped through the crowd, fast but careful, heading for the hallway that led to the parking lot. Harris caught my eye from across the room, subtle nod, then followed. 2 other plainclothes officers flanked him. I excused myself from the line of well-wishers and walked into the hall. My pulse was so loud it drowned everything else. Daniel was there, waiting, leaning against the wall like we were meeting for a secret rendezvous. When his eyes locked on mine, that familiar smile spread across his face. "Told you," he said softly. "Not over." I forced my voice to stay steady. "You're right. It's not." He took a step closer. "So you finally admit it. You belong with me." But before I could answer, before I could even breathe, Harris and his team closed in. "Daniel Cole," Harris barked, badge flashing. "You're under arrest for violation of a protective order, stalking, and harassment." For a second, Daniel didn't move. His eyes stayed on me, calm, almost amused. Then he smirked. "This is what you want? To watch me in chains again?" My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, yes, to spit in his face. But instead, I just whispered, "I want my life back." The officers grabbed him, forced his arms behind his back. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He just kept smiling, eyes locked on me as they cuffed him. "This isn't the end," he murmured, the same words he'd thrown at me 100 times. But this time, something shifted inside me, because I realized it was the end. Not because he said so, not because a judge would decide, but because I was done. I turned away as they dragged him out. My knees nearly gave, but Jenna was there, catching me, holding me up. Outside, the night air hit my lungs like freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I was standing. The trial that followed was shorter. The evidence was undeniable. The recordings, the letters, the witness accounts, it all stacked against him. This time, he wasn't charming his way out. He got years, real years. And when the gavel fell, I didn't cry, I didn't shake, I just breathed. Because it was over. But survival changes you. I still check my locks twice before bed. I still wake from dreams where his voice snakes through the dark. I still flinch when strangers linger too long. But I'm also stronger, louder, more alive. Daniel thought love could ruin me. And in a way, it did. It shattered me, burned me down to ashes. But from those ashes, I built someone new. And that was the day I stopped recognizing who I was, because I became someone stronger.
someone free.